Welcome to Nexus Edge, the show that'll help you get an edge on your competition. My name is Arthanol, and I am the slightly less esteemed host. This is the Week 1 recap for Season 7 of NGS, and if this is your first time tuning in, we want to welcome you to the show. Hopefully you'll enjoy it and have some fun. So, today I am joined by the usual panel. You love them, you have strong feelings for them, and sometimes you don't agree with their predictions. So, from the top, we got Ziltoid. Next, we have Wono. And today we are joined by our special guest, Wedge. How are you doing, Wedge?
Pretty good, guys.
Awesome, yeah. You kicked my team's butt last week. That was fun. So thank you for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself for those of us who don't know you?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm Wedge. I've been helping out in NGS for about 4-ish seasons now. One of the board members. I've also been moderator for Heroic Division the past couple seasons, and been doing a lot of helping with Division S stuff as well.
Awesome, and you're on Duratan's couch, right?
Yes, yeah, the only team that's managed to survive every single season of NGS with the same five.
Yeah,
same five players.
Season 1, admin apocalypse, everything. You've seen everything. So, what role do you play?
Everything's old news. I'm the offlaner, but I'm also the bitch for the team, so whatever role needs to be filled, I take it. So
I think the preferred term for that is flex, but
I mean, that's the thing. After playing together for 7 seasons, you have to just accept it for what it is.
Yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. What's your favorite hero to play?
I mean, you're in the same division as me. I can't give away that type of information.
That's true. That's true.
But
well, we already played each other.
Tassadar is probably my favorite, honestly. It's nice, it's mindless. I like force walls to keep people stuck where they are.
Well, it's a good thing Tassadar's not worth a ban. Alright, so for those of you who like what NGS has to offer, please check out our Patreon, Heroes Nexus Gaming Series. So if you like what you see, please maybe throw a couple dollars that way, support NGS. So, we're introducing a new segment to the show, our power rankings. So, what we're going to do is every week we are going to, it'll change up, we will have our power rankings for each division. We will talk about teams that we think are interesting, you know, first place team, second place team, why we think they're there, maybe some teams in the middle or towards the bottom, and why we feel that way. So, starting off, Ziltoid, would you like to start with your power rankings, if you're ready?
Absolutely. I can get started anytime you'd like.
Hold on, let's hear it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Let's hear Heroic.
So, Heroic Division had a bit of a rocky start. We had one team drop out, which was Power Bro Army, and that has kind of messed with the points structure. Everyone has a domination now, so every team that's not Bro Army has a number 3 next to their name at the bare minimum. So it's not as easy as looking at the other divisions where you can just be like, oh, look, here they are in the standings. And we're also going to talk a bit about the games, you know, on why I do feel the way I do about where people are placed. But we're going to start things off with Bro Armor being gone, means that Amazing didn't actually, or, you know, basically that was their match for the week. So they didn't get to play. Another notable point is that Celeb Gaming forfeited to Nobo Esprouts. So we don't have data on Amazing or Celeb Gaming or even Nobo Esprouts as far as their premiere week starts going out. So despite them having a higher number in the list relative to Celeb Gaming, Nobo Esprouts is probably going to be still lower in my power rankings. The matches that did get played this week was Miss Most Skill Shots, and they took on Archon. I casted that matchup. I also did BBW versus Keanu Reeves. You can catch it on my channel or the YouTube VOD. Both games were actually quite entertaining. Keanu Reeves versus BBW was actually quite close. It was a 2-0 in favor of Keanu Reeves, but kind of belies the nature of the matchup. It was really quite close between those two teams. With Keanu Reeves just having a bit of an edge in the shot calling and some of the just certain plays they were able to make happen on the map. As far as miss most skill shots versus Archon, miss most skill shots actually pretty handily won both games. It wasn't a blowout, but they did pretty much. They pretty much had control over both games throughout, with just a few kind of moments where things got a little bit hairy at one point or another. But for the most part, they kind of had the control in that. So when we're looking at power rankings, we still have a few of them that we're not going to talk about because we have really no data on them until it's really gone out. So I'm just going to kind of limit it to the ones that were played or were supposedly supposed to play this week. I do think miss most skill shots is my number one power ranking for this week. I think they looked most dominating of any of the teams that kind of came about, and I expect to see them actually be quite convincing throughout this series, or throughout the season. Keanu Reeves would be my number two. Again, they played this week. They looked strong, and I think that they'll also be able to match up with a lot of these other teams. Another set was Insomnia versus Dread Pirates, which I forgot to mention. Insomnia versus Dread Pirates. Dread Pirates is a new addition to the Heroic Division, so this is their first debut into kind of tougher teams. And Insomnia definitely showed that they've been a heroic team for a while, and managed to pick up a domination victory over Dread Pirates. But it wasn't like super clean. So like Dread Pirates definitely made some plays, definitely put a lot of pressure onto Insomnia. It was a good set to watch. If you haven't caught it, you should catch the VOD. I'm trying to remember who casted it. Oh well, I'll remember some other time. Anyways, so that was a good set, and Insomnia definitely showing where they should be in the standings. Now I'm going to put Slub Gaming above them because if these guys do play, I do think that they are number 3 in my power rankings despite the forfeit. I'm just going to include that, but given the fact that they didn't play, if they can continue to not play, they will definitely drop in my power rankings. So hopefully they'll make it up next week and they'll play their match. So and they don't have any further issues. So obviously one forfeit doesn't mean anything, but 2 in a row starts to get things a little bit scarier at that point. Mm-hmm. And so and then it'd be basically Insomnia, Nobo, Esprouts, and Amazing, all kind of in that order. As again, Nobo and Amazing didn't really play, despite the chances to. So we'll have to wait till next week to see what those teams really have to offer in this division.
For sure.
And Probe 1 versus Moto was supposed to happen this week, but they rescheduled. So that's going to be coming up early next week. I'm going to see if I can get the cash for that, but we'll see. They haven't popped up on the schedule yet. And so again, those teams, coming in the next spots is really just arbitrary based off of the fact that they were supposed to play, that they didn't play, blah, blah, blah. So, as far as it goes from there, Yikes S tier, really the only ones at the bottom that we've been able to say are at the bottom, really in actual competition, would be, I would say BBW, Archon, and then Dread Pirates in that order. And that's pretty much heroic. Mm-hmm. We'll have more data when it comes up next week. Do watch the games if you want to get an idea of the power levels of specific teams, but we definitely need to get further into the season to get any convincing ideas of who needs to be where.
For sure, it's very early.
It was Bahamut who casted that other game.
Bahamut, okay.
Dread Pirates and Insomnia.
Okay, so catch that VOD on his channel. It was a good set. It definitely wasn't like a blowout or anything. It was much closer to my Keanu Reeves versus BBW game than it was the miss most skill shots versus Archon.
Awesome. Anyone have anything to add to that heroic power ranking?
You can definitely expect that Celeb won't be missing any more games. They decided to add 3 new players to their roster just over the weekend. They picked up Smitty Werbin, Mr. Basket, and TT Porky. So they're definitely making sure they're making all their games now.
Oh, wow. So are all those roster members like starters? Are they fielding like a new team? Because
I have a feeling this is more just these are guys that they regularly played with. But like if they needed a sub last minute, they'd be willing to pull them in.
Okay.
Just so that they have this backup ready when necessary.
Because if they're fielding a new team, I would definitely
place
them a little bit lower.
No, and those
No, no.
I don't know Mr. Basket very well, but I know both Porky and Smitty Warbin are very capable players, so I think they are strong additions to the team, even as subs.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's mix it up a little bit, and we'll come back to you for Div A.
Certainly.
Let's hear from Wono for Div B.
Cool. So obviously Div B is the first division where we started seeing those coastal splits. So we got both Div B East and Div B West, you guys. I'm going to start it out over on B East. And so for the power rankings, Zilcho kind of talked about it. This is just week 1 and it's a new segment, so we're still kind of ironing things out. We don't have a ton to go off of for these power rankings, so really it's just based off of what we know of the teams from previous and 1 or maybe 2 in the cases of teams that scheduled some flex games, match results. So to start off my power rankings for B East, in the top spot is Reborn Knights Black. So Reborn Knights Black, they were a strong team in the previous season. They made playoffs, maybe didn't go quite as far as they wanted, but they're one of the only teams to have played 2 matches so far in Division B East, and they've come away with 2 dominations. So the first game was against Winston Churchill Manatees, cast by DB Smiley. I caught most of that game, and they looked pretty commanding the entire way through. And the second game here, if I can find it, was against Jailbait. So Jailbait was another returning Div B East team with a bit of a roster shakeup. I expected them to be a pretty strong contender in Div B East, but Reborn Knights Black handled them pretty handily. So that's kind of why I gave them the top spot here, is they were able to handle a team who should be probably near the top in the standings for Div B East. After that, I gave my second spot to Beast Coast. So Beast Coast is kind of a new team, or they're an old team. They've been around before, but they took a season off. Their players kind of scattered and then came back together. They had a really strong first showing against Rush B. Granted, Rush B is a team moving up from C, so they might not be the most, the highest maybe bar to compare to start with, but they look good. They're good players, and I think they're going to be pretty big players coming into Division B East. Moving down from there, we have Almost Legends Gold, the team formerly known as HOTUS. They played the Real Ultimate Mosh Pit this week in what was a very back-and-forth, grindy 2-1 win. I gave them a little bit of a leg up over some other teams that had dominations, just because of how good of a team I know the Real Ultimate Mosh Pit is as well, how close the series was, and how hard-fought the win was. After that comes Regen Phoenix. So Regen Phoenix, again, a new team to NGS made up of some familiar faces. They had a 2-0 victory over, over DiveHard. So another team moving up from Division C. From what I could tell, Regen Phoenix looked pretty dominant most of the game, and DiveHard unfortunately isn't expected to be a major player just because of moving up from Division C. They're having some new, tougher competition than they're used to. After Regen Phoenix comes Buff Chen. So Buff Chen is I believe they're a new team to NGS here. And they played off against Minion Miners, who is a returning team. That game ended up as a 2-1 for Buff Chen, but it was another really close back and forth game. A couple good plays could have gone either way. Murky's Hit Squad takes the number 6 seed. I didn't actually get to watch their match against Regen, or Almost Legends Ruby, so maybe Ziltoid can fill you guys in a little bit better about how that one went.
Really, it came down to the wire. It was a 2-1 victory for Murky's Hit Squad. It was not they were not majorly ahead by anything, but they definitely were. They were drafting well, and they had a bit of an just good map awareness that allowed them find some good pickoffs and good fights at the end of the game. They managed to pull off the third game victory. It was a tight series. Good watch.
Sounds about right. 7th place, I put Minion Miners. So despite their loss to Buff Chen, I still think Minion Miners is a solid team and a good squad, and 7th place doesn't really denote just how good of a team I think they are. They might have had a few stumbling blocks in the first week, but expect them to make some moves and move up the ladder. Eighth seed goes to Almost Legends Ruby. So as Ziltoid said, they had a really close set with Murky's hit squad there. They also have managed to pull out a win against, I believe they played Die Hard as well. So that's the only reason that they're maybe a little bit lower, is that their one match win is coming against a team that we expect to be closer to the bottom of the B East standings. Ninth seed, we have the Real Ultimate Mosh Pit. So about a lot of these teams in kind of the 7, 8, 9, 10 slot, I could move any of them around. I could put them a little bit higher. With only 1 week worth of intel, it's kind of tough to say. But the Real Ultimate Mosh Pit looks like a very strong contender for B East, and just because they lost their first outing doesn't mean you can count them out yet. 10th spot goes to Jailbait. So talked a little bit about Jailbait already. Returning team, good team. 10th is probably lower than they'd like to hear, and that they'll probably end up just because they lost their first outing. But I expect Jailbait to be a solid team. 11th goes to Rush B. Rush B moving up from Div C. Kind of an unknown how well they're going to adapt to being in B now. They were a really solid team in Div C, but they lost their first match in Div B, so I think they were without Dominator, their captain, who's obviously a really solid player and brings a lot to that team. So I'm kind of uncertain on Rush B if they'll be able to move up further or kind of hover near the bottom of the pack. And 12 and 13 go to Winston Churchill Manatees and Dive Hard, respectively. Winston Churchill Manatees, if I could give power rankings based just on name alone, they'd probably be the top seed, but unfortunately, it remains to be seen whether they'll be a major contender in Division B East. And Dive Hard, we've already touched on, unfortunately, taking the bottom seat this week, but plenty of season left for them to prove me wrong and move up. Do we want to take a break from B, or should I keep going for B West?
Let's go ahead and hear the rest of B West.
Sure. So, well, I guess first of all, did anyone have any thoughts or major objections to B East, how I ranked it?
No, actually, I think B East was pretty in line to what I personally would have put if I suggested. I actually agree with your list quite strongly.
See, really low on the list, but given the results, you can't really do anything else that makes complete sense to me. So, but yeah, like we're definitely going to see this ranking list change a lot.
It's going to move a lot, yeah.
Region Phoenix, I think, might have put a little higher, but that's about it.
Yeah, again, I kind of said just because the team that they played is one of the weaker teams, so even if they look strong, it's kind of tough to say compared to teams who beat better teams.
It's true.
And Wedge, you were in this division last season, and you know some of those players. What do you think?
I'm thinking this is gonna be a really tight season for the East. Honestly, like seeing that both Jailbait and Minion Miners lost teams in B now. It's they used to be the top half of B like pretty consistently. So if in the first week that's what's happening, I have a very, very strong feeling it's gonna be like back and forth entire season long between a whole bunch of teams. It was always great to see.
Definitely. Alrighty, if that wraps up B East, let's move on over to B West. So, taking the top power ranking in B West, I've given it to Arrogant Nephilim. So, Arrogant Nephilim is another returning team. You're going to see a lot of familiar faces in these B divisions, which is nice to see. So, Arrogant Nephilim, they 2-0'd their first match against Spooky Ghosts. So Spooky Ghosts is a team that I believe they're new to NGS, so they're a bit of a question mark for how well they're going to do. That being said, I know Arrogant Nephilim is a strong team. They're a playoff team. Like some other teams, they've had a bit of a roster shakeup, but I definitely expect them to be within the top half of Division B West for the entirety of the season. In second place, I have Almost Legends Amethyst. Another new team of familiar faces in the new Almost Legends Dynasty. So they had a very tough 2-1 win over Reborn Knights Red. It was a really good series, pretty back and forth. Both teams making some good plays, making a couple errors, but that's to be expected. So I gave them the second seed, despite it being in 2-1, just because of how strong a team Reborn Knights Red is, and them being able to clinch the victory over them shows promise for our new Almost Legends friends. Third spot, we have You Love 'Em, You Hate 'Em, Logical Decision. Logical Decision 2-0 this week over Unemployed Gaming, a new team helmed by the Rexpa. So uncertain how Unemployed Gaming is going to be in this season, but Logical Decision, we had a pretty strong 2-0 over them, so we clinched the third spot. Fourth spot goes to Regen Blue. Regen Blue also picking up a domination for their first match this season against Running with Turtles. That match very easily could have been a 2-1 for them, or even the other way around. It was a close set all the way through, especially game number 1 was very, very close and back and forth. Good opening for them, a 2-0, definitely on the right start this season, so we'll see how Regen Blue performs. They've kind of been one of those teams that's just squeaked into the playoffs the last couple of seasons, so I know they're looking to make some bigger waves and be a real contender Division B West. Fifth place, I put Reborn Knights Red. So despite their loss to Almost Legends Amethyst, it was a 2-1. It was a close set. Reborn Knights Red was my pick to win B West, and they're a very solid team. So it's definitely too early to count them out just because they managed a loss. Sixth spot, this one's kind of up in the air. I gave it to Roll One. They do have a win recorded on the calendar, but it is because of a forfeit. So it's kind of too early to say without any real match data how Roll One Esports is going to perform. So putting them right around the midpoint for B West seems right for the week 1. After that comes Soak Every Lane and Uncomfortably Numb, kind of sharing the 7th, 8th seed. They still have yet to play their game. It was scheduled a little bit later, so they are both also matchless in the season. Soak Every Lane's a returning team. Uncomfortably Numb's a new team to NGS. Don't know a ton about them. Soak Every Lane was pretty solid throughout last season, so I expect them to be probably within the top half of B West. In 9th seed, I have Unemployed Gaming. So Unemployed Gaming, as I said, took the 2-0 loss to Logical Decision. That being said, they didn't go down without a fight to a strong B West team. You always have to take into factor the Rexpa factor, who can propel teams. I know that they have had a little bit of roster issues that they're still kind of ironing out with the beginning of the season. So I expect them to start coming together kind of later into the season and really starting to shake up some of the top teams. In 10th seed, I gave it to Running with Turtles. So Running with Turtles also got 2-0'd, but probably should have been a much closer set against Regen Blue. We'll kind of see how they do. I have hopes for them that they'll be a strong team, but with only one match to go off of, there's not a ton of info. Spooky Ghosts takes 11th seed. I haven't watched that match yet, but and don't know a ton as they're a pretty new team to NGS. And then 12th seed goes to Who Knows Gaming just because they were the forfeitee of this week. So no info to go off of them, and having a forfeit, you kind of automatically have to put them at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And that does it for B West. Thoughts, concerns, questions?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Rexpa effect. I know Unemployed Gaming, they kind of had a rough start. I know it's a very new team with a lot of very new people who are new with each other.
It's a lot of new.
A lot of new, but...
I think they recruited a tank player who was kind of wishy-washy and ended up leaving the team, so I know they're kind of still working out on team roles and who's playing what position, so first week is really tough to say how a team's going to be. A lot of teams don't, especially new teams, don't really start clicking and coming online with their synergies and their drafting and everything till later on, so they definitely could be a very strong B West team still.
I think what's going to happen with them is I think they're going to squeak on by into the playoffs. Maybe just in like bottom 2 playoff seeds, but then I think they're going to find their stride.
Are they going to become the new debt task though?
I think so.
Upsetting everyone.
I would not count out Unemployed Gaming personally. I think they're going to have a slow start, but I think by the end of the season they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But for the time being, I definitely agree with their current placement.
Siltoid, your home division, how do you feel?
I mean, there was a lot of games but I don't know if like most of the matchups were all that tough. Again, Almost Legends versus Reborn Knights Red was a pretty close set. But Almost Legends is a pretty neat team. I think they get once they're actually riding like full stride, that's going to be a really tough matchup for anyone. Uncomfortably Numb is an ex NGS division champion. Actually, they're not a brand new team. They just were not present in the last season or two. So they're coming back in, but I am concerned. Sokover Lane is a team that's been kind of going hard since the end of last season, no problem. All the way through Heroes Lounge into the playoffs there, and then outside of that, they're scrimming, they're practicing and stuff like that. And I think a super active team like that with competitive players is probably going to be probably too much to handle for Uncomfortably Numb opening weekend. I picked Sokover Lane to win the division, so I am expecting them to come out swinging, but we'll have to wait to see how that goes up. They will be higher on that list, I assure you later on. Region Blue getting the victory is pretty good. Running with Turtles is a decent team.
Yeah, I definitely think 10 is a little lower than I would have them, but being 2-0'd it's 1 week.
Yep. So, I think Running with Turtles definitely is going to place higher in the season. They had Regen Blue is an experienced team, and they picked up a good player in the offseason, Fox, and so I think that's had a positive effect on the team overall. And they work hard. They've been putting the work in. So Regen Blue was some people's picks to win the division, or at least place very high in the top 3. So we could expect to see them doing pretty well this season. But yeah, I think generally speaking, I don't know where else you would place most of these teams. I think it's about as accurate as you can be in the first week.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Wedge, let's hear what you think about Division C.
Division C. Okay. So I'm going to start off with Division C East, since that's what I'm much more familiar with, considering that's the division I'm playing in this season. Feels really good to be back in C East. I'm going to say that first. Miss the div chat. Feels way better to actually be involved in these memes instead of just being a mod that gets to see them. So for C East, I didn't do a full list, but what I'm going to do is the teams that I feel are going to end up near the top. And then the teams that I have a feeling are going to pick it up towards the end of the season. So I have a very strong feeling that Winky Face is going to end up near the top this season. They did place first overall in the Zul'jin Distillery Invitational. And I'm not sure if they ended up playing this week. Did not see if that match got reported yet or not.
Which one was that?
Winky Face did play, yes.
Yeah, okay. So then that one just didn't get reported then. But I have a very strong feeling
they won 2-0.
Yeah, that's the other tough thing about this is that
over Wood League, and it was.
We don't have a ton of great stats because of the reporting issue from week 1. So reports of games that have already been played are kind of still just all funneling in. So we're working with what we got.
Us mods, we're giving every team 1 week to like get used to the system, and then after that, it's like, okay, no, we're going to be on you the entire time.
Yeah, that matchup was on the Nexus Gaming Series main channel.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was the.
And it was Winky Face versus Wood League, which was of course the XGDI championship. So, but Winky Face came out and kind of smashed them. So it was definitely. Wood League should be a powerful team this season, so I think putting them at number 1 is probably a good idea.
Yeah, no, I've got a strong feeling that Winky Face is gonna make it in the top 3 for sure, and then Wood League I can see very well easily being a middle of the pack, upper end team as well for C East. I also put Calculated Throw as like another top end team because they beat Lubu 2-1, and Lubu was a team that was also in B East with us, Sturgeon's Couch last season, and they were another team that managed to compete in B East, even though just like us, they were another team like we were pretty much stuck in the bottom of the division entire time. They put up much better fights than we did, so To see Calculated Throw take that off of Lubu in a 3-game series makes me think a lot more highly of them. And then I'm going to be somewhat biased here and say that my team is going to be probably near the top, but, you know, you got to have a bit of confidence, right? If you don't have that confidence, your team's never going to make it anywhere.
You guys had a good initial showing. You've played 2 games, 2 wins, right?
I mean, yeah, we opened up this season right on Monday, playing against Arthano's Nexus Cats. Won the first map, decided that we didn't need to respect the Johanna or the Jaina anymore, and they immediately showed us why we needed to respect the Johanna and the Jaina. Then we had to take it back in the 3rd game. And then...
I was just going to say, if I could plug any one match to watch from week 1, I would say go back and watch the Duratan's Couch Nexus Cats Game 2. That game was wild.
Oh man, there's a lot happening on that one.
If you want to watch a butt clincher for 30 minutes, that's the one to watch.
I mean, if you want to be screaming at your screen for like decisions that teams should have made, definitely watch that one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
and then we also played Bancho, and Bancho is another team that I'm expecting to improve throughout the season. I think it was just kind of unfortunate timing for them. They were just coming back from a whole bunch of their teammates were coming back from a trip overseas, so I think just got a bit unlucky for being jet lagged and whatnot for when they faced off against us. But they definitely have a lot of potential to bring things around as the weeks get going. Mm-hmm. Lastly, for B East. Just like to shout out Save the Murloc. Or sorry, C East. I'm sorry. Letters are hard. For C East, I'd just like to shout out Save the Murloc because I completely relate with that team name, and you guys probably wouldn't, in my regards, for best team name in C East.
And they're a former Div D, or was it Div E champion?
They were Div E champion, actually.
So Div E champion, Div D last season, and moving up to Div C this time for, is it the first time, I think?
Yeah, the first time they knocked a game off and do it right. So
almost as big a jump as logical decision.
That's not where I was going. I was going to say good showings from Save the Murloc and Nexus Cats are 2 division, or Bugin Squad too. Is it?
Bugin Squad.
Yeah, Bugin Squad moved up.
A lot of Div D teams moving up to Div C, and so far, even though they haven't been maybe getting the match wins, they've been taking maps off some good teams. So.
Yeah,
good stuff in them.
You guys have already been saying like the first week is nothing to base this off of. So they still have plenty of time to like get used to these new teams here and what everyone's comfort picks are.
But try to win those early matches. They generally add up at the end of the season.
Yes,
yes. You thank your stars for winning the early matches.
Yeah.
So you guys have any extra thoughts for C East that you'd like to add on?
Yeah, I think you're sleeping on Die for Vision. That's a scary, scary team.
I haven't had much of a chance to check them out.
I think you should look into them a little bit.
We're not playing them until like week 4 or something. It's fine.
Oh,
they do also have the best logo in the division, so
yeah, it's a
highest pixel count by far.
No, I think they are a very good team. I think they're easily top 3. They were Division B as well last season.
Yes, as Excel Esports.
They were Excel Esports.
Well, I've casted a lot of C actually this last week. And the one that stood out to me that no one's talking about is Paraloot.
I believe they're
That's West.
Oh, is that
that's
West?
That's why we haven't talked about them.
Okay. I get the purple and the pink mixed up sometimes.
Yeah.
We're figuring out a way to make that a lot easier for people to tell on the calendar. Because that's been a very common feedback. It's like, yeah, we probably should come up with something that's a bit more
for sure.
Intuitive.
I did watch the Die for Vision Regen Anomaly matchup. I think Regen Anomaly is an untested team, so it's kind of hard to make any conclusions from that match. And there was definitely moments where Die for Vision was struggling against them. So it wasn't a clean victory by any means.
No, for sure. I think Region Anomaly, it's headed by Carver, is also a team that I think is I think they're going to have a slow start. I think they're going to miss they're gonna drop a couple of maps that they're really gonna regret and should have won. But I think that they're gonna squeeze into the playoffs and be a very scary team as well.
Okay.
And I think they're worth watching too. But they
I
are
guess I
kind of
watched a
underrated.
lot more C West, so let's get to that.
Great segue, Ziltoid.
Yeah, great segue. So moving on to C West.
Just making it so easy for me, Zilto. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for.
So I'm going to do a very similar thing for C West as I did for C East. I'm going to probably put Tickle Me Tassadar as one of the top teams for sure, just because they were champions of C West 2 seasons ago. They're a largely returning roster. Most of their roster is still there, and they open a week with a bang, 2-0 domination right away. So fully expect them to be finishing the season strong. Another team that I expect to be doing well is Lurk Patrol. They've been around for pretty much as long as NGS, just taking a couple breaks here and there. They've always been a competitive squad. They know very well how to push themselves. They're able to identify like their own ways to win, and they make it work. Then lastly, for rounding up my top 3, I was gonna go with someone else, but after Ziltwedge stressing Paraloot, and going off of taking making him be the one to take responsibility for this, I'm gonna put Paraloot as the rounding up my top 3 for C West to open up the season.
Oh no, I'm gonna get flamed by Valkyrie.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
You know
he did that
my-
on purpose.
You're welcome. Yeah, Paraloot. I mean, some people might call me a cop-out for choosing the 3 teams that dominated in first week, but they're not
Hey,
wrong.
Yeah,
So,
now that we have to go.
as for teams that I'm expecting to be able to pick things up towards the end of the season, I got a very strong feeling that Pigeon Stitches will be able to get things going a bit better. I know a couple players on that team, and I know that they're not ones to just accept things being the way they are. They really like to push themselves and look to try to improve. So I can see them climbing their way up throughout the season. Any Oak League. Played against them in Midsummer Night's Brawl. And for a format that was supposed to be a lot more fun and not taking it so seriously, they did a really good job of like just super well mechanically in that. So I can see them definitely being able to, as the season gets rolling, they just build up their macro and able to just keep on improving from there. So high expectations for them as it goes along.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just really appreciate the acronym of AOL, you know. Never gonna let the old things die.
So they played Almost Legends Obsidian the first week, and so the acronyms were AOL versus ALO.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yep.
It was rough.
That's a rough cast.
It's bound to happen.
I agree with Wedge here. I think any Oak League, while it wasn't the clean 2-0 that they maybe wanted, they do look like they look good. Probably putting some things together still, so look forward to seeing them being a strong team in C West here.
Very much so.
Other than that, that wraps it up about as much as I have an opinion on for C West. Unfortunately, I pay much more attention to C East since that's where I do my regular scouting. Do you guys have anything else to add for C West?
Obligatory can't counter pick stupid should have been just a little bit higher before Flames us. No, in all seriousness, I do think they're a top 3 team. Who would I replace on your list? I think I would probably replace I just dropped it. Probably Lurk Patrol, personally. Any reason why? Not really. It's just a hunch. Maybe I'm just saying all this to dodge the wrath of Valkymer. Maybe not. I made, Valkymer's team won in game 3 where Lurk Patrol dominated their first week. It's still early. Maybe can't counter pick stupid isn't a top 3 team. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. Lurk Patrol was in this division last season, right?
Yes.
They were.
Okay, yeah.
Their first game was against Pigeon Stitches.
Anyways, yeah, I think Lurk Patrol, Pigeon Stitches, I think it's kind of hard to say how strong that was. Pigeon Stitches is moving up into a tougher division. Lurk Patrol was a playoff contender last season.
And
Exactly.
Pigeon Stitches also lost Fox to Regen Blue, who was
Right.
their top player. They did pick up DB Smiley, who's a very solid support player and a good addition to their roster, but it's kind of comparing apples to oranges when you lose like your carry DPS for a support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that one's kind of, I think I can agree with Lurk Patrol maybe not be considering that high just off of that 2-0 domination. Because CCS did basically the same thing to a restructured 10 Armor, who basically was a gutted team with a bunch of new players. So, like, one of their main range DPS from 10 Armor from last season, Midnight Haze, is playing in Heroic Division.
Oh, wow.
And then the other two players from the original roster are in A Division on a few loose screws. So.
Wipeout and Lampico are in A Division.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there was only 2 remaining members from that team. They were probably, no offense to anyone, the weaker players of that squad. And they're just kind of putting together a new team. So one of the reasons why they dropped to C instead of being in B. They're definitely not going to be as on point. They're going to be in a rebuilding process probably through a good portion of the season. If they make playoffs, it'll be a bit of a surprise to me. So CCS did pick up a domination over them, and I think that's pretty comparable to Lurk Patrol getting their domination over Pigeon Stitches in a kind of a similar sense. We did see, however, CCS did manage to 2-1 Team Rainbow Strike Go, who that team actually looked pretty solid. So it was not an easy set by any means for CCS to come out a win against that team. And I think Rainbow Strike Go is going to be winning quite a few matches of the season. They looked pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those 2 teams definitely are something to look out for. And I do think CCS had a good opening week. You definitely want to come out the opening week with a couple wins, especially over a team that looks really strong. Tickle Me Tacit are taking out Plugwalk in a dominating fashion. Plugwalk isn't really what I would consider a weak team in this division by any means. So Tickle Me Tacit are getting a pretty strong win over them. Definitely kind of set the stage for who I think is going to be at the top there. Almost Legends Obsidian Annie Oak League was a pretty close set, but AOL definitely did manage to come out with the victory there in a pretty dominating fashion in game number 3. So it was a close series, but both teams have things that they can improve. And then the last thing I'll talk about that we didn't touch on for sure was Paraloot. And Paraloot versus Piecemeal. Piecemeal, based off the roster, I believe should be a mid-high contender, but definitely a playoff spot team. And Paraloot kind of just handed it to them. Actually smashed them really hard. And remember, this is a team that took out Dive Hard in the semifinals and then went on to really pressure Almost Legends at the time, right after. I think that's who they played. Oh, man, I'm having a hard time. Or it was Regen Red.
I think it was Red.
If it was Regen Red, but it was not an easy series for Regen Red by any means. They were the eventual C champions.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that Paraloot is probably that one team that might just come through and just win games that you don't expect them to win. So I would say they're probably in my top 3 right now.
Yeah, I think Lurk Patrol and Can't Counter Pick Stupid are kind of interchangeable right now at the 3rd place spot, and I do agree with Paraloot being top 2, 1 or 2. Yep. I think, if I had to choose. All right, anything else on C West?
Yeah, I'll just real quick. Ziltoid just briefly touched on them, but the only team we haven't really mentioned too much in detail is Piecemeal. So they are a mostly returning team. I am blanking on what their name was last season. It was Ogle's team. So it looks like largely the same team minus Ogle, who is actually in the same division just on Tickle Me Tacit. But like Ziltoid said, it's a solid roster, and I definitely expect them to rise in the ranks a little bit. Just because they got 2-0'd in their first set doesn't mean much.
Yeah, I think they got beat by just a really strong team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on to D West. I'm going to try and make this quick. So, first seed, I got Full Metal Jacket. So they actually have not played a game yet. It has, or at least it has not been reported. The reason why I'm putting Full Metal Jacket there is they were a very dominant team last season in Division D, and their roster's unchanged. So I think they will continue to dominate over here. I think D West is a bit more competitive than Division D was last season. But I think they're going to maintain that. Now, in second seed, I got Clouded Minds. Also, kind of for the same reason, they were a very strong team last season in Division D West. So I think they are going to maintain that. But they did drop a map to Bloodbath and Beyond, which brings me to my fourth seed, which is Bloodbath and Beyond. It was a hard-fought series. They took off a map on a team that I think is very good. And I think Bloodbath and Beyond deserves to be higher up. And I think they are going to surprise a lot of people. I believe they are a new roster. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're a new roster unless anyone can correct me if they were some other team.
I don't recognize any of the names, and they don't have
not.
any matches previously on the system. So if they are not new, they at least took last season off.
So I skipped over my third seed to mention that. My third seed, I have Randy Newman. So they are actually the only team in Division D West to actually have a domination. I'm trying to see who they dominated Backbone.
Backbone.
Which, no offense to Backbone, I do have as my lowest seed currently because they didn't have the strongest season last season. I hope they prove me wrong.
I mean, they did squeak into the playoffs.
They did. They did.
So I mean, they are definitely a sleeper team that you might want to keep an eye out for. They traditionally have a slow start.
They did lose a Cash though, did they not?
I believe.
Yeah, which is a pretty big deal, as that's a super
I think he's all the way. Is he A or heroic?
He's heroic.
Heroic, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the reason why I have him towards the bottom, is Akash was a very big part of what made that team squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But Randy Newman, there was a little bit of hype around them before the season started anyways. They seemed like an interesting team. Their roster seemed pretty strong. I think they are going to continue their strong showing. Yeah,
a pretty solid playoff team from last season.
And the name Randy Newman is too hard not to love. So now, fifth seed, I have Luciodology. So Luciodology, they have a history of kind of having a slow start, but they're often a very good team. The thing about Luciodology is they very, very commonly play up to their opponent's level. Luciodology, even in their bad seasons, always takes games off of the first seed team, second seed team, even when it doesn't make sense. I think they have a little bit of Pittsburgh Steelers syndrome, where they like to play up and they like to play down to their opponent's level. If they can remain consistent, I think they will be a playoff team and a strong one at that. At the sixth seed, I have the Baddest Dudes. They had a pretty strong season last season. I have them a bit lower because I think that D West is very competitive, and I'm not sure if they will be able to run with Clouded Minds, Full Metal Jacket, and personally, I think Luciodology is going to have a good season. It's early, so I mean, we'll see. Maybe in a week this will be different. Number 7, I have Disturbance. They were also a team in D West last season. Unfortunately, I don't really know much about them. I know they were actually decent last season, and this is kind of a similar issue of there's a lot of good teams in the top 5. So number 8, 9, and 10 are teams that honestly I could switch any one of them. So number 8 out of these 3 I have in the top spot between these 3 because of its name, Yavapai County Youth Chess and Swim Team. It's too good of a name. I don't know anything about this team.
Yeah, you do. It's Asthma Carry.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. No, okay. We need to change all of this.
Yeah. Asthma Carry or Yavapai County Youth Chess and Swim Team should be
I completely missed that. Okay.
I just call them YCYCNST.
Okay, so
is that even any easier?
I don't think that's easier.
Okay, so we're gonna put that team in 3rd place, and everything I mentioned goes down 1.
Yeah, because they should be quite strong.
Yes, I did not realize that. I am sorry, Yavapai.
But they did lose to Full Meta Jacket.
They did, but Full Meta Jacket's a team that
is like top 1 or 2 teams in the division.
it's
I think
Probably.
it's one or two of our choices for winning of this division for sure.
For sure. So that puts Camino Saber Darts at number 9, who I don't know too much about them. If any of you guys know, please inform me.
Well,
They played
yeah,
the
go
baddest dudes in week 1. It's not reported on the website right now, but I think it was a 2-1 for the
Oh,
baddest
it was?
dudes.
Okay, because
Yep.
it's showing
Yeah.
0 points right now, which
Mhm.
is...
So that's why I think because there was that weird upload error where teams had to re-upload. So I did catch the last half or so of that match. They look
I watched the
competitive
whole
with the
thing.
baddest dudes. It was never like a blowout either way. It was
Mhm.
a 2-1. I think the baddest dudes did look like a bit of a better team, but I think Camino Saber Darts isn't a bottom tier by any means, and definitely not to be underestimated.
Mm-hmm. And then at number 10, I got Backbone, and like we mentioned a second ago, the big reason why I have it there is I think Akash was a very, very large piece of the puzzle for them last season, and with him gone, I fear they will struggle. I'd like to be proven wrong, but I think D West is a much more competitive division than D East was last season for them, and I think with the lack of Akash, it's going to be much harder as well, which is why I have them at number 10. So, any comments on that?
I think you kind of fixed it yourself when you realized who Yavapai was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good teams in Division D West, and I think even among the top like 4 or so teams, there's a lot of movement that can happen with who's going to take the top spot. Just because Full Meta Jacket's kind of holding onto it right now doesn't mean that they are going to retain that. So it should be a very exciting division, I think, to watch.
For sure. I think D West is actually going to be a lot of fun. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to move on to D East. So with D East, I have Zul'jin Distillery at number 1. I think they're moving down from Division C, if I'm correct. And
They are, yes.
I have watched a lot of their games. I have played against them. They are a very good team. DeWitt is a very observant person. Running away from the scouting of DeWitt is a very tricky thing. I think he's very good at reading teams like a book, and I think purely because of how much time they study their opponents, I would put them at number 1. And their skill is very good too. But I think they're excellent at studying, so if you want to beat Zul'jin Distillery, I think you need to have tricks up your sleeve, hiding, and be able to execute very well. Number 2, I have House of Ches, who, they're a very good team. Last season, they were also C, were they not?
They were.
And even previous to that, they were a B team.
Yeah, they were fairly competitive in those divisions. Actually, to be completely honest, I'm not sure why they're in D. I won't question placements, but I know they're good.
I think they had a bit of a rough
Roster
season
changes.
last season and some roster changes. So I think the move down is probably a good step for them. So just to give them maybe some more competitive games.
But based off their game and what they are, I do expect very strong.
Yes, for sure, number 2 or 1.
And if I may, it's House of Shea, not Ches.
House of Shea. My bad.
Yes.
They opened up the season with the 2-0 against Tryhards, who I think is a pretty good team. Not a top tier team, but I think they could be. I think they're very close to being a top tier team. And number 3, I have 2 Calculated 2 Throw. This was a team last season that started off kind of slow, and maybe I have a little bit of bias because they beat the Nexus Cats in the playoffs. But I do think this is a team that transformed significantly over the course of last season. They learned a lot. I think it has to do with their sister team, Calculated Throw. I think they worked a lot together. This is a team that, at the end of Season 6, looked like a totally different team. It was uncanny. They were very, very strong. They beat the Nexus Cats quite convincingly in the playoffs. And then they went on to almost beat Frankfurters, who is now Obsidian Black in C West. And that series was very, very close, went into game 3, and could have gone either way. I think 2 calculated 2 throw is a force to be reckoned with, and their roster is largely unchanged. Number 4, I have Church of Murky. This is a team that took a break last season, and they were a Division C team the year before, I believe.
Yep.
And,
That sounds right.
And if I recall correctly, which this is a long time ago now, but they didn't do the absolute best in that Division C, but they participated in Zul'jin Distillery in the off-season and managed to get a lot of reps in with some very high-caliber teams like Zul'jin Distillery and Winky Face and Lubu and teams like that. And I think while they lost a lot of games to those teams, they did manage to hang in a lot of games. And I think if they can find some consistency, they will continue to grow. I think this is a team that has a lot of potential to grow. I have them at number 4 right now. I think they could be number 1 if they manage to get practice in. Number 5, I have Censored. I believe Censored right now has a domination under their belt. I'm trying to see who it was against. It was
4 Uthers and an Alex.
4 Uthers and an Alex. That was that's a team I'm not too familiar with. I believe Wono, or did you know?
So I know Judo Chop. Judo Chop was the captain of Scorpius Eternum from Division B West last season, which was itself the combination of 2 different teams. I don't know the rest of the roster. It only looks like 2 of them, or one of them was maybe a former NGS player, maybe a couple subs because they have just a handful of matches played on the website.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from Judo Chop, I don't know much about the team and how they're gonna perform.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and move on, and hopefully we'll learn more about them. I'm going to put at number 6, I'm going to put Team Rectum. This is a team that played last year in D West, and they did fairly well. They made playoffs. They were kind of towards the bottom, but I think currently I would put them middle of the pack. And then number 7, I have Tryhards. Very similar story. Number 8, 4 Uthers and an Alex. Team I'm not too familiar with, unfortunately. Number 9, I got Probus. So this is a team that was in D East last year, and I've watched a fair bit of their games. They're a good team. They're inconsistent, though. They are very wildly inconsistent. If you force them out of their comfort zone, they look like a very different team and almost seem to forget some of the fundamentals of the game. But whenever they are on their comfortable heroes, they team fight very, very well. Number 10, I have Painfully Average. Currently, let's see here.
They have lost 2 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So Church of Murky, and then just earlier today they lost to Zul'jin Distillery, another 2-0.
Which, that one's a hard one to place because
They played 2 of the top teams.
They did just play 2 very difficult teams, and it feels a little bit unfair to them to place them this low. It's hard to really determine because those are good teams. So I feel bad for placing them there, but that's where they are right now. Number 11, I have FF and the Pancakes. So this is a team that has taken a break over the last year, and I believe they came back with a fair bit of roster changes. So it's real hard to have a strong opinion on them. I know. They were a Heroes Lounge team.
Yeah.
They played a fair bit of Heroes Lounge, and I don't have the stats from that, but I guess this isn't their first rodeo, so maybe it's a little unfair placing them that low. But that's it for D East. Any opinions on this?
Did you miss Wood Tap that?
I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, I did. I moved something around right there. Would tap that. Okay. Move everyone down 1. I put them at 9. We're right below 4 Uthers and an Alex. Which,
And what's your reasoning for that?
They don't have a logo.
That's why I was going to put them right at the bottom.
I was going to put them at the bottom. I mean, they have Night Knight. That's a pretty neat name, but this is a team that they got 2-0'd by 2 calculated 2 throw, which is, as I said, in my opinion, one of the better teams. So it's real hard to be fair to them in the rankings. It's early. This is a team that we don't have a lot on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, everything from 9 on is kind of a crapshoot for the time being, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think your rankings are pretty solid and you have good reasoning. The top teams are kind of already pre-established, both just because they had strong week ones and they're a bunch of returning teams, some of them changing up divisions. Again, as we've repeated time and time again this week, since it's only week 1, we don't really have a ton to go off of, 1, maybe 2 games for some teams. So expect a lot of teams to shuffle upwards and downwards as the season progresses.
For sure. All right,
we gotta go back home to A.
let's go back to A.
Before I do that, I didn't quite, argue about your power rankings for D West.
Yeah.
This is a man with an opinion right here.
He took a moment, he's got some opinions going.
Always. Anyways, House of Chaz number 1, Zulja Distillery number 2,
House of Shay.
2 calculated to throw number 3, Censored number 4, Church of Murky number 5.
Okay, that's not too far off, and I'd be willing to go with that.
And then I think you should put Probus, Four Earthers and Alex, Team Rectum, Tryhards, FF in the Pancakes, Painfully Average, and Would Tap that.
Okay. No, I don't disagree with that.
Sounds reasonable.
All right. I can give you all my reasonings, but we're just going to move on.
Let's do that.
Anyways, Div A, interesting opening week, I would say. It got pretty crazy here. But I'm not going to give you my opinion. We're going to use Mr. Key, who was able to provide us with a good workout of what Div A is looking like this season to start, much of like he was doing last season. But I'm going to skip most of the data he gave us because it's just not relevant to this discussion, and we're just going to go right to the Div A power rankings. Number 1, we have Wipe Them Again. They managed to get a 2-0 over Wholesome Halfwits with a Mephisto pick. Apparently both games. That seemed to be very good. I actually haven't managed to watch that. I do need to go watch the VODs on Arrow's channel. That's probably the one match from Div A I actually missed this week. But I'm definitely going to go see if I can get a little more insight on that. Maybe I'll have more information for you next week. Wholesome Halfwits did get bumped up from Div B. They were already somewhat competitive with Div A teams at that time. So I do expect them to at least be maybe not the bottom, but this is a really tight division. Div A is full of fantastic teams from top to bottom. So it's going to be really hard for me to say that they're not going to still be kind of in the bottom 3 teams, more or less. And so I don't know if that number 1 Wipe Them Again position, given their matchup, is necessarily deserved, but I'd have to watch the games to really see how strong of a win it was. Number 2 with Team Happy Cloud. They took a 2-0 over Regen Retro. Regen Retro was in Division A last season as well. They also had a bit of a tough division in that season, and Team Happy Cloud came out with a pretty strong 2-0 over top of Regen Retro. So if anything, they're making the statement that they should definitely be in the top. I don't know if they're going to stay top 2 for very long, but I do think that a nice 2-0 to start the match or the season off is always nice to have. Rewind at number 3. They took on
Team Training Wheels.
Training Wheels. And Team Training Wheels was running some weird strats, and I think Rewind wasn't quite certain about it. And we have to keep in mind they are a newly formed team. They just came together for this season. So despite having experienced players, some of the things like their communication and stuff like that, it's probably going to be a bit off in some of their contests. So Team Training Wheels, I expect to be a top tier team, and Rewind did actually take them out 2-1. They did manage to get the victory, and so I think a third spot for this week is probably good as they should get. But expect both those teams, Team Training Wheels and Rewind, to be pretty deadly this season. Quite a big threat. Gilly Shark at number 4. They got a 2-0 victory. And coming up from Div B, they're the only team from Div B that did move up to place in the top 3 or top 4 for this week with the 2-0 domination. And I think they're making a big statement, kind of coming out there and saying, hey, look, we're just going to win here. They picked up Veggies in the offseason. I think has always been a strong frontline player. Was fantastic on the Division B champions Virtual Murky Slayers, and I think that was shown yet again in the Gilly Shook matchup. They got a 2-0. Who did they play again? I'm trying to remember.
They played One Spit and Thrice Spy.
Right, that was that's Ghost Dunk's team.
Yes.
Right. Who I think are a strong team this season. So that's a good victory for them. It's not they didn't take out the lowest seed of this division by any means. So getting a 2-0 domination there sets a really big statement for Gilly Shark, and I think they're going to keep going pretty strong in this division. Regen Ghost got a 2-1 victory over Into Deep. I did watch this game. I do think that both teams are quite good. But I do think Regen Ghost is, again, a brand new team trying to figure things out. And I felt like where they won, they started to win pretty hard. And they had, I think this team, as it starts ramping up through the season, is going to be pretty nasty. Definitely top 3 contender. But number 5, 2-1, wasn't a convincing win, but it wasn't too strong team. So, it definitely, I think 5 is very much deserved. Sky 5, team that had a rough run last season. I think they either barely made it into or just barely missed the playoffs last season. Does anyone remember?
Off the top of my head, I think they just missed, but I might be wrong.
I'm pretty sure they missed it.
Yeah,
but that's off the top. But
they were right on the cusp to getting in, and they came out.
I think it was really close with them in Regen Retro.
And they came in against Fulu Screws, which is kind of made up of a couple of those players we're talking about from 10 Armor, which you could kind of consider as a team moving up from Div B. So Wipeout and Lampico are both on those teams, with, of course, many others on this squad. It was a really close set. It was a good win for Sky 5 to pick up there. It was a 2-1, I believe.
Yes.
So it was a close fought series, very, very tight. I think those two teams, like Sky 5 is at 6, Fulu Screws is at 8, and I think both those teams are going to be pretty interchangeable throughout the season of where they're going to place as they kind of get their footing. Lion Speed didn't play yet, right?
No, they have not played yet.
They play tomorrow. I cast it. There you go.
Tomorrow being Monday, July the 15th.
Yeah. So I'll catch it on my channel at 7:30 Mountain Time, or 6:30 PST. Lion Speed versus One Spit and Thrice Pie. So that'll be interesting to see where they kind of list out. I think OBTP is one of those teams that is kind of a good place setter for this division. And it'll be a good idea to get wherever everybody sits depending on who wins and loses against them. Felu Screws we kind of already touched on. I think their spot is deserved. They will definitely win some games this season. I don't think anyone should count them out. 8 is fine where they are, but do expect them to move up. Into Deep, again, it was a tough fight over with Regen Ghost, who I think is a top 3 team in this division. So I think Into Deep is definitely going to be a contender throughout the season. Already talked about One Spit and Thrice Pie, who's at the number 10 slot. Number 11, Team Training Wheels. So it's kind of a shame to put them this low because they took on what I would consider probably the number 1 seed in this division, Rewind, to 2-1 victory, and it was a hard-fought series. It was not by any means a stomp by Rewind. So these guys are definitely going to pop up. Many people even considering this team to be potentially a top 3 placement. And that, again, this is a team that also moved up from Div B, so it'll be interesting to see how they place out. But it's a kind of completely revamped roster. They look and play completely different, and I think the 11 slot is probably not what they deserve. They probably should be up above. I would place them probably above Lion Speed at the number 6 or number 7 spot. Just put them right underneath Sky 5 at the number 7 slot and move everyone else down. And then Regen Retro and Wholesome Halfwits, I think 11 and 12 are deserved. Both these teams have a lot to prove this season, and it'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off.
Did you miss a team? There's 13.
Yeah. No, I got them all. 12 and 13 was Regen, Retro, and Wholesome
I thought you
Halfwits.
said 11, 12.
I might have misspoke. That's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I did list
Well,
the
I was
number
like,
of
I was
teams
looking. I'm
correctly.
like, you said 11, 12, but I'm like, but I think he said all the teams.
Yeah, my bad.
No, we're good.
So yeah, Regen, Retro, Wholesome Halfwits at 12 and 13 slots. I think that's interchangeable. They could both be wherever. They both had a rough start to the season, and they're really going to have to work hard to come back.
Mm-hmm. Division A is pretty big this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to call.
Yeah, man, that's a rough division to predict. That's for sure.
Yeah, the top end for NGS has really grown a lot this season, which is always nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have any comments on that. Anyone else?
I think Ziltoid did a pretty good job calling it. Gilly is one that is maybe, I mean, this was Keith's predictions, maybe as much as I like Gilly and I want them to do well, maybe a little higher than I would put them. I'm uncertain how One Bit and Thrice Pie is going to turn out in the division, so maybe the win over them isn't as impactful as some people are calling it to be, but
That's a fair point.
So we'll see how it turns out. I think they're still getting used to playing with Veggies in the tank role, and he's a lot more aggressive of a play style and a lot of a tank than Jinxie Cat, their other tank, is. She tends to be a little more conservative, plays tanks like Arthas and Johanna, whereas he's very much a new Diablo dive tank style. So definitely a bit of a learning curve for them to play with a different tank and a different style. So we'll see. I don't know. 4 might be a little higher than I would place them for now, but I'm not mad at it.
Yep. All right. If that's all we got, we're gonna move on to. So right here, I have in the topics Edge Game of the Week. That's supposed to be a new segment I didn't get around to adding, but I will point out that if I had to pick a game of the week, just off the top of my head, Region Phoenix versus Minion Miners. They're playing Tuesday. Hopefully this episode is out before that game happens. We'll see, but that's going to be an interesting game. And if you guys have any interesting matchups coming up, please go ahead and say them. I didn't really...
You broke into my division, because my game of the week I was actually looking at is on Wednesday, and Reborn Knights Black and Beast Coast.
Yeah, that...
So another B East game. Those were my number 1 and number 2 power seeds for this week. So... expect that to kind of set the tone for how B East is going to be the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. That's.
I'm going to plug 2.
What's that?
I'm going to plug 2. I'm going to plug 2. So obviously, Line Speed versus Once Bit and Thrice Pie. You have to watch it because I'm casting it. Obviously. But one that I'm watching out for, if we're looking at C East. Calculated Throw versus Duratan's Couch.
Oh,
that one should be really good.
Yeah.
Calculated Throw is a top tier team, and see last season Duratan's Couch not so much, but the moving down in divisions.
Accurate.
The moving down in divisions does even things out, I think, between these two teams, and it should be damn close.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, we played Calculated Throw in the off season for a little tournament that Wono put on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fun little matchup against them. We did not know to expect a certain two-headed ogre to show up, and that really threw us for a loop. So seeing how things shake out this time will be a lot more fun.
Hey, Wedge, you got any Game of the Week plugs?
Going to the division at Mod. I'm really looking forward to see Moto versus Insomnia. Mm-hmm. 2 of the returning heroic teams from last season, just to see, like, they largely unchanged their roster, but just to see how things shake out between these two. They're they've always been two very competitive teams. So
Yeah.
I always like to see where the bar is set for Heroic each season.
Awesome. All right. Well, moving on. So we got our community member of the week. It's TerdHerder. So obviously he's not here. You're stuck with me. He got married. As of recording, he got married yesterday, July 13th. So big congrats to Mr. and Mrs. TerdHerder. I actually have a wedding photo of them to put in. Editor, if you could put it in right here. This is the time code right here. Please put that photo in I sent you. Thank you. He's a wonderful guy. He hosts the show every week and puts up with my bullcrap of scheduling and asking him to do things a lot. He's been absolutely wonderful, and I miss him, and I hope he comes back next week because he's a lot better than me at this. So, moving on, we got our the favorite segment, the highlights of the week. Number 5 highlight of the week, we have Always Have Faith. Show the clip.
Calling out the location, I imagine, of Regen Blue coming in. And here's Thrall trying to channel, but the ring goes out onto only ETC. Almost got Grendel on the Gul'dan. But the Leap of Faith gets ETC out with 37 health. Holy cow.
Now the number 4 highlight of the week, we have the NGS Classic combo. Roll the clip.
From the members of Gilly Shark, let's actually see what the vision looks like on the opposing team as they're setting up to jive in on this. That's going to be Shadow Charge onto Bobo. Once again, Lightning Breath into this backline. That's going to be the Warden's Cage under a couple of members over here. That's going to be Hanzo with the arrow. That's going to be the Eternal Feast. Mosh Pit on a couple of members while the Eternal Feast goes on, and everybody goes down.
For our number 3 clip of the week, we have Grizzly is a God. Show the clip.
That top Web Weaver mid drops, but now the rotation here onto Malthael. He's taking kind of a awkward rotation. Is he going to get away? The portal not close enough. There's protected, but I don't think... Oh my god. Wow. Okay, so we all agree that Grizzly is a god, yes?
For our number 2 highlight of the week, we have the sushi line. Play the clip.
They'll be here in time, but they got to take the fight now. Here's ETC sliding in, missing Diablo. Phoenix drop early, and it's not going to get much value at all. The Biotic Mitter was played as well. There's the Warden's Cage on the backside. Eternal Feast drop from Orphea. Ring of Frost not hitting, but the Graviton did. Held back a few. No one dead yet as the Mod Pit comes out. Locks in for the Phantom Knives. Resets 1, 2, 3. Gunslinger will be number 4. Regen Phoenix looking to make it all 5 with Curly standing in the bottom lane. It's a mega kill for Regen Phoenix. Moving on the point, making it happen.
Wow, did you see that mosh pit? 4-man mosh pit while on a conveyor belt. That was like a regular sushi line.
And our number 1 highlight of the week. This was actually mentioned a little bit in our power rankings. Fisto. That's all it's called. Play the clip.
And 1 kill over to Wholesome Halfwits with their level 10s. We saw the Ring of Frost. We do see that Shadow Stock. The Imperious charge onto to Mephisto. The Power Slide and Face Melt coming out from ETC, trying to finish the job here. But ultimately, I'm sorry, what the hell just happened?
And we have a special mention. We don't usually do fails of the week, but this one was too fun. So it involves a Medivac. I'm really sorry to the team who did it. We had the plug-in. I'm sorry. So roll the clip.
What's up?
Oh, here's the
Medivac.
Medivac. Where are they going? Where are they going?
Forget the
be
talents.
Late, but they right into the waiting hands of Spartacus. A big root
Right
there.
into the root from the boss. Ah, the definition of unlucky. Apocalypse coming out though. Wipeout is just zoning this Jaina out, and Akash is having to vault away. Wipeout's gonna...
Alright, so those are the highlights of the week. Also, I want to plug in Valkymer. You know him. He asked all the questions on the show, except for this week for some reason. He has a new show called the Late Night Face Check, so hopefully we have a teaser by now to put in. So editor, right here, put the teaser right here.
My name is Valcomer, and here we are on the Late Night Face Check. It's where we interview one of our players from Nexus Gaming Series so that you can know a little bit more about them, and we can have a little bit of fun as well. So tonight, as you heard, we've got Dominator. Dominator, let's dive in. What team are you on? Where are you coming from? What brings you to Nexus Gaming Series?
Hi, thanks for having me, Belk. I am a part of Rush B. I'm actually their captain.
Nice.
To give a little backstory on us, we've been around since season 4 is when we first started. So going into season 7, we basically just bounced between Division C and Division B the past couple seasons, and this time we're in B East. So hopefully we have a pretty successful season coming up.
So, moving on, we have our Edge questions. We don't have too many of them. So, here's an interesting one. It's from Do It of Zul'jin Distillery. Edge question. Which hero got the best buff and which hero got the hardest nerf?
Did he ask this question prior to the patch or this post-patch?
We're going to assume post-patch.
Oh, God.
I would say
Ken's probably the biggest winner over the patch.
Okay.
The guy who didn't need a buff, but got one anyways, and is now just...
He good. He real good.
He's really good. I would say... Wono, you go ahead.
I was going to say, Wedge kind of put it in while you were talking. I would agree with him that Greymane is also one of the biggest winners of this patch. Buffing his AA damage, like, you know he's an AA hero, but it does so much for him. It does his wave clear, his camp clear, his auto-attacking on heroes. Like, he's a monster. His siege damage, it all comes from his AAs. So buffing one aspect of his kit is really buffing everything that he does, and I expect him to kind of see a little bit of a resurgence as a top-tier assassin.
I fully agree with that. I think Greymane's going to be banned a lot and picked a lot from here on out.
And he got Blizzard, too.
I'm actually curious what you guys think. So this is a thing Nexus Cats argue about literally every week, and I keep shutting it down. And Nexus Cats keep, hey, we should try Lunara. I'm like, no, she's not good. Pick Raynor. And then they did the movement speed buff. And then you pick her level 1 movement speed buff, and she's as fast as you were on mounts before the patch, and you can't hit her. And I don't know if she's going to be any good, but I think maybe she's different enough now. I don't know. But
Why don't you start, Wedge?
For me, I'd say it comes down to what the enemy team has for a frontline and what the enemy team has for a healer. Because obviously, if they're an Uther or something along those lines, you're going to have much easier time with Lunara than a Jimmy.
For sure.
But also I'd say for frontline too, because like Jimmy does a really good job against, say, like an ETC or an Arthas, like someone that's just like sort of slowly walking at them that he can knock back. That's very predictable. I'd say Lunara, if you ever want any mobility that Jimmy doesn't have, she more than makes up for that, and like she can kite a lot better and put a lot more poke onto those tanks that you care more about having that space in between you two.
Mm-hmm.
She also brings some really strong rotation control and vision control with her Wisp. I know we've started running him or her a little bit, and Ziltoid favors the Wisp talent at 1, just because if you park it in one of those vents or bushes, it provides so much vision that it's basically impossible to get rotated on unfavorably.
And you force them to hunt for it, too, as well. Like, they all are like, why am I revealed? Where is this damn thing? And I like hiding it in the weird bushes that they don't immediately check, right? Mm-hmm. They always think it's going to be in this spot or that spot, and I'm always, like, behind their side on their enemy side where they're not rotating consistently, and they're like, what the fuck? So, yeah, no, I think the movements buff just naturally buffs Lunara. I don't even think you really need the level 1 anymore. I think it actually makes it even less relevant. Just the fact that she does get that increase to her regular movement speed is nasty enough as it is. Mm-hmm. She can already almost keep up on mounts, basically, with it. But actually, all of those heroes have received a major buff. Almost every auto attack hero in the game has received a major buff. If we want to talk about Greymane, for an example, the auto attack wasn't his only buff. The movement speed is as well, because if you take On the Prowl at 13, he becomes this speed demon monster that you can't possibly track down, especially with his like regular disengage and engage tools that he already has to close gaps and distances. No backliner is safe. If you've got a squishy range backliner that's like trying to not die from dive, Greymane is going to kill them because he can just get in on whoever now, especially once he starts ramping up. So once he gets 7 with Quicksilver bullets, I'm not sold on the Q buffs. I'm not sold that is the way to go. I know people have been taking the Q talents because it got a 5 damage buff to it, but it's still just as frustrating as a talent tree to hit, and it's still not consistent enough, I think, not versus Quicksilver bullets, which the range increase, and then you get the speed increase at 13, he just becomes an absolute monster. Lunar obviously does benefit from the buffs, but Jimmy does too as well. Jimmy has his W, which allows him to be able to move around pretty quickly with his auto attacks in the first place, which makes him, again, that got buffed, so he's faster now. And if you take Giddy Up, now he's like the stupid, crazy speed demon as well that can kite faster than almost anyone in the game with the stupid long range and very hard hitting auto attacks. So again, every single auto attacker you can think of got a buff from this. And Vala too as well. Health buff plus speed buff plus a new level 16 talent that's probably broken. So you add kind of all of those three things together, and Vala, who was not in the meta before, really, is probably going to start becoming the kind of new hyper carry resurgent.
All right. Well, any other thoughts to that?
Just like to point out for biggest loser, probably Eric. He didn't get any of the movement speed buffs. Also, I've heard apparently that Lucy got speed buffs as well. So, to address the biggest losers part, I'd definitely say those two.
Yeah. I don't realize Lucy.
And mages in general with big
any skill shot hero, yeah.
Yeah.
Even Hanzo sort of got a bit of a nerf here. People are going to be wanting to take redemption, I think, a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. All right, well, that's it. We did it without TerdHerder.
Sweet.
See, we don't need them.
Yeah. I'd like him back. I'd like him back.
I mean, yeah, I miss him. All right.
Well, Turd hosting and you in the background probably keep us on time a little bit better.
Oh, yeah, for sure. for sure. All right, so any closing thoughts, guys? Ziltoid, you got anything?
Not really. It was a great opening week. I think we had some stupid number of cast percentage above 80%, which is just insane considering how many freaking matches we had this week. It was 17 on Thursday, and I literally think there was only 2 that didn't get casted.
Yeah, it was wild.
Something stupid like that. So
that was the first day where a match wasn't casted too. Everything before that was.
And we almost got every single one casted even on that day. So
yeah.
Do we have more than one guy named DB Smiley? Because I swear he's been on every game.
He's been picking up a lot lately. He's really been wanting to dive into casting again, which I'm always happy to see.
He was a good caster, and then he took a season off. I think he had some stuff going on in his personal life, so he needs some time off. But he's back with a vengeance, playing and casting. So really happy to see him. Really happy to see all casters, old and new, coming back and just putting their best foot forward to get as many of our NGS games casted as possible. It's something that we've kind of talked about in the past, which really helps NGS feel like a community and more than just kind of a pickup league, is how much community involvement we have, how many games are casted, all the extra media stuff that goes on. So shout out to everyone doing work around the league. Valkymer with his new show coming out, the Podcast Boys, I'm sure they'll be back up and running soon. So really great.
Oh yeah, and I did make a post in Hype Channel. I am reviving the Nexus series, so anyone that didn't see that post, what I'm changing up this season is I'm opening it up to the community at large. So if you just think you know a hero that you can talk about for half an hour to an hour, that you want to really kind of dive into, hit me up. Just send me a message on Discord with a DM, and just kind of tell me what hero you're interested in doing. And we'll get it set. Hopefully, I'll have this all set up, ready to release an episode within the next week or so. So,
awesome.
Still starting to get things off the ground, and I should be getting some assistance as far as the media stuff, so it'll look a little bit nicer. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to get that started up.
Awesome. Well, Wano, you got anything to close out with?
I mean, I kind of went already, but thank you, Wedge, for joining us. Pleasure to have you on the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's great to finally be on there.
Awesome.
Also,
yeah.
It's just like watching like you guys' shows and then actually being able to make it on. It just, it feels special, you know.
Well, that's what we tried to do here. What, you got anything for us?
Not too much. I'm trying to keep up with all things nerdy, you know. Diving into the new Magic Core 20 M20 set, getting back into Warhammer 40k. Curse my brother for getting me back into that, and also playing a bit of Divinity Original Sin 2. It's overloading, man.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Fire Emblem Three Houses comes out in 2 weeks, so that's what I'm waiting for. So goodbye, NGS.
That one's scary too.
Comes out, I'm retiring. But so. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. Wedge, thank you for joining us. Shout out to all of our researchers, Key, Ryokai, Blank, Himibo, Marshall. Thank you guys so much. We couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you to all of our panelists. TerdHerder, I hope your wedding was absolutely blissful and wonderful, and the Nexus Edge family wishes many years of happiness to you. Please come back. We miss you. Please come back. So, this is Arthanaut here saying have a great day, and take your hots to the edge. How's he doing? Like that?
To the edge.